Oh god. Okay. So, welcome to my vlog. This is mainly for myself. I am starting a project where I attempt to make a robot hand. Yeah, couldn't put it much simpler than that. This is mainly for myself. This is kind of like my replacement for documentation. I understand that documentation is very important. I'm in robotics on FRC Team 2468, and one of the important things that they stress is that you should make prototypes and you should document what you do. And the reason that you document is so that you learn from your past failures and the way you approach something, and also so that other people can learn from what you do. So yeah, that's what I'm here. And I kind of, for this first video, I'm going to kind of talk about what it is I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So yeah, well actually I can start by saying why I want to do it. First reason I would have to say is because I've seen so many different videos about it. There are so many different people on the internet, such as the ones on YouTube right here, where people are making these really cool arms for people with disabilities, people who don't have their hands anymore. I can't think of the word, I apologize, but yeah, it's just something it's growing, and I feel like by being able to build something like this, I would be able to kind of grow from that, making an arm, like an articulating arm that mimics the hands and your wrist and all of that. And just thinking about it, the electronics part of it, like the mechanical side of it, is very difficult. Like I have no idea how you would possibly make this and fit all the electronics, all the different small pieces that you need to make a joint, but that's why I'm here to figure out. So yeah, as for how I'm going to do it, I'm going to be utilizing some machines. I have a 3D printer back here, which you can't see, but it's a Ender 5 Pro. Should be able to do all the little things on the hand that I would need. I don't have any metal carving machines, except for a CNC router. It's on the right of me. It's a video XL something. No idea, but I understand that a lot of people have these machines, and I'm very fortunate that I have access to them. So I'm going to be making use of them, trying my best to post things online, and I highly doubt anyone's going to see this video. But it's mainly for myself, so I learn. So for starters, how am I going to make this? Well, I'm kind of thinking out loud here. This is literally going to be my first video, and I'm just going to post it. But the first thing when you're making, I guess, something so complicated as an arm is, I guess you start as simple as possible and you work your way up. Kind of like a bottom-up design. Exactly a bottom-up design. And in this case, I would actually, instead of the whole hand, start with a finger, right? How do I get this to move? What's the best way to make this move? Of course, I could just look at a ton of other videos like I had before me, but I haven't clicked on any of them, except for the third one here, but that one is more really like joints, not fingers. So I'm kind of going to approach it based off another inspiration I actually have. There was a company called Intuitive that came to our school, Westlake High School, and they demonstrated the Da Vinci robot, which is a surgical robot. It uses a lot of joints, got titanium belts moving all these different joints. They got like 7 degrees of rotation, and they use these little pinchers to do surgical operations. It's very cool. And one of the things they use, from just what I see, is it's some sort of cable, it's like a flexible string that they use as like a pulley to move these pinchers and all these different degrees of rotation. A bowden cable, if you don't know, is something that's on bicycle brakes. Like when you pull the bicycle brakes, it basically pulls the string and it kind of like forces, I think, a piece of metal into the wheel so that it slows down. But the cool thing about Bowden cable is it maintains its length, right? It doesn't really warp because it's surrounded by this tube that maintains its length so that it'll do what you want even if it's bent, right? So if I bend the tubing, the brakes will still work because Bowden cables have that property, this quality of being able to do that. So I want to utilize that. Bowden cables come in all shapes and sizes, even ones that should fit for a finger. And instead of starting with a whole finger, I guess I could start with just a joint. Like, how could I get just this part to move instead of thinking about all of this? Because that would take a lot of time. But I guess one of the things that I wanted to articulate was how this would work. So a finger, any sort of joint, right, has to have some sort of axle, right? Which means that, we could say there has to be an axle. That's pretty obvious. And I realize you can't even see that. So I'll make it bigger. Right? Has to have some sort of axle, right? Something to pivot it on, which makes sense. Depending on how you're going to work it, you need some sort of bearing, right? Something for the axle to ride on so that it'll actually rotate properly. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of wear and break. And well, whatever the axle has, the shape of the axle, it all depends on that kind of stuff. But this has to be attached to some sort of finger, right? Some sort of attachment, like the sides of a finger, right? Like an Iron Man. Wow, Iron Man! I can't believe I just made an Iron Man reference. Okay, so yeah, I just want attachment. Right. General ideas, right? This is just thinking out loud. And I guess we would go from there. As for the bearing, it doesn't matter where the bearing is or how that works. But the main question is how you rotate the axle, right? So if you think about a pulley, right, it has an axis of revolution, right? Something that it rotates upon, which would be the axle. And what you could do is, you can take a different color pen. If you take a string and you pull it from the top down, it rotates. Right? I mean, that makes sense. If I take another string and put it over here, well, that rotates this way. If this is all routed onto another thing, right, and I rotate this, then it turns the secondary, right? And pretend that this is like my motor. So then what happens is this motor is turning this joint at some sort of speed. Depends on the motor, depends on all these different specs that we don't exactly know at the moment, but that will determine what happens. So yeah, this is what we make. This is the concept sketch that I have to work with and figure out how I'm going to prototype this. I'm going to make a lot of prototypes throughout this project. I would say a better way to do it would be to model it all out, make it out before you make all these prototypes. But I have very little to no experience with this kind of arm stuff, so I want to spend quite a bit of time actually figuring this out. Thank you for sticking with me for this first video. I'm still figuring stuff out, but documentation, so cool. Thanks guys.